The truth is, I was bored, so I made $1,000 in a day as a complete beginner. And in this video, I'm literally sharing with you everything I did step by step. That way, you can literally just copy me. And no, it's not clickbait. Now, since it's probably the first time you and I meet, my name is Fred, and I'm an entrepreneur from a lower middle class background. I grew up in a small town, less than 10,000 people, with no real career opportunities. My mother worked a dangerous night job as a nursing assistant. Alongside with her other female co-workers, they had to deal with very violent patients. They were thugs that got into knife fights, drug dealers, convicted felons, so as you can see, not exactly the type of people you would like to be around. And with only a single security guard for the entire building, as you can probably guess, shit was bound to happen. Sometimes it would even happen that one of the patients would get violent, verbally and physically with the nurses. Now when it comes to my father, he was working as a nurse, but since many years, he fell out of love with his job. He was treated like a commodity, like a pawn on the chessboard. Growing up, I saw how miserable he was. That made him fall down the rabbit hole of addiction, and so our family life at home was far from being a fairy tale. Every single day, without exception, I'm not joking, I would hear my parents complaining about the price of food, electricity, water, literally of anything. And my mother would always go grocery shopping on the least expensive days, because that's when they were making all the big promotions. And very often, I would see her filling out these online surveys just to get free products from the grocery store in exchange of her opinion. Whenever my younger sister and I wanted to buy certain things, we were often told it was too expensive, we couldn't afford it. So as you can see, growing up in this kind of environment, it's not like I was meant to develop an abundance mindset. In fact, when you grow up in this kind of environment, you're pretty much guaranteed to develop a scarcity mindset unless you yourself reprogram your mind for success because you want a different outcome. But for some reason, this kind of life, the lower middle class, just didn't sit right with me. I couldn't tolerate that mediocrity. I couldn't tolerate that daily frustration and anger. I just felt there was so much more abundance out there in the world, and we just had to figure out a way to obtain it for ourselves too. And I don't know why, but ever since I was a child, I've always had this feeling in my heart that one day I would be successful, one day I would make it, one day we wouldn't have to worry about the price of anything ever again. That wouldn't be a topic of conversation anymore, because back then, the price of things was the only thing my parents ever spoke about. That and their jobs and how miserable they were. Now they say, as an adult, you will strive to obtain the things that you lacked as a child, and for me that's completely true. If I had been well off, I probably wouldn't have cared so much about making it and becoming successful. And I also probably wouldn't have the work ethic I have now, because I wouldn't have had all that pain and all that frustration. And I know from trusted sources that some of these extremely wealthy kids, their parents are multi-millionaires, they're worth a few $100 million. These kids, they're miserable. They have no aim in life. They literally just end up losers. They go to the bank to request access to their trust fund, and the reason they want that money is so they could buy a private jet, go on fancy trips with their friends, stay in the most expensive hotels in the world, do drugs, party, that's it. They have no goals. And while there's nothing wrong with spending money on nice shit, when you haven't earned it yourself, it feels tasteless. Who do you think is going to appreciate a sports car more between the guy who worked 10 years like a maniac to be able to obtain it and he grew up low income or middle class, or the guy who's 18 years old and he got a brand new Ferrari on his birthday because daddy bought it for him? It's quite obvious that if you had to struggle for something, the greater the struggle, the sweeter the taste of victory. So sometimes, I'll be honest with you, I've had moments where I just thought, God damn, why was I so unlucky, you know? Why wasn't I born in a wealthier family? And I know it could have been far worse, but it also could have been far better. But then I reminded myself, well, you know what? It's teaching me to become a strong person. It's allowing me to develop strength of character. It's teaching me many lessons I will never forget. So a lot of people think, oh my god, I wish I had been born rich. Life would have been so easy. And sure, life might have been easier for you, but if you could have all the things that you wanted instantly with no challenges, you would become depressed very quickly. I'm not joking. We find pride in overcoming challenges. And so growing up in this kind of environment where we witnessed misery and pain on a daily basis, where we often lacked money to do the things we wanted, it just made me so hungry for life. It made me want so much more. And I figured the only way for me to get what I wanted was to become extremely hardworking, because nobody was going to hand me the life of my dreams on a silver platter. I had to go out there and to get it myself. And so at the same time at home, I would witness this scarcity mentality, but then when I was going to school, I could see these wealthy kids getting dropped off in brand new Porsches, Audis, BMWs. They were walking around with expensive clothes from well-known brands, and every year they would get the latest iPhone, while at the time I didn't even have a phone. And on top of that, every morning I had to force myself to get up super early to take the crowded bus so I could go to school. I was fucking miserable, let me tell you. And I remember the first time I arrived in school, people made fun of me because my bag was cheap. And that's not even the funniest part. Just a week or two before school started, we were outside with my parents and we found a $1 bill. So we literally used that money to buy a bag for me for school. So it was brand new, but because it wasn't an expensive expensive brand, it wasn't good enough in the eyes of the wealthy kids. That's literally how superficial people were. They made fun of my clothes, they made fun of everything about me. And every year, after the summer break, I would hear them tell tales of their vacations to Rome, Italy, Greece, New York City, and it felt inspiring listening to them, knowing that this kind of life was possible. But at the same time, to be honest, I felt jealous, because growing up we never did any of those things. We never went and explored another country. We simply couldn't afford it, even though my mother really wanted to travel. Instead, I'll tell you what our summers looked like. We were stuck at home. It was super warm inside the house because we had no AC, so we would basically just spend the whole days in our underwear, at least my father and I, just watching some crap on TV. It was really just pathetic. And sometimes we'd go out, let's say to an appointment or just to go pick up my sister from school, and I would see like somebody driving past in a sports car, like, you know, a Porsche 911 for example, and every time I was like, wow, I want to do that too. Like, fuck it, that person is enjoying life. Maybe they're driving to a friend's house, they're going to have a massive party, and they have this $100,000 car while we're struggling. And I saw it with my father. I just didn't see the point of working a dead-end 9-to-5 job that literally makes you depressed, so depressed you have to take medication, and all of that for what? Just to pay your bills and your taxes? And it's not like nowadays, in the internet age, we don't have lots of opportunities to make money. Nowadays we do. Nowadays becoming wealthy, starting from nothing, has never been more accessible. But most people, they tolerate this mediocre state. They don't like it, but they're not willing to do what it takes to become successful and to have more. They don't make much money, but they make enough money not to be homeless and to have a few entertainments like video games or maybe Netflix, and that's it. And they tolerate that shitty state. And that's probably the worst position that you can be in. And then, at the end of your life, when you're on your deathbed, you realize you went after none of the things you wanted. You realize you wasted your life. And I can't even imagine how that must feel, knowing it's too late. Now, when I was 11, I decided to type how to get rich in the YouTube search bar. I knew for a fact having more money would solve 99% of our problems, so I wanted to find a way to get rich. But I also knew I wasn't going to learn how to become rich from university professors, so I figured I needed to learn from wealthy, successful people. It was the only way to actually learn how to become wealthy myself. And that's when I discovered you could start an online business and make money from your laptop with a steady internet connection, literally while you're traveling the world. You could decide your own hours, pick your own schedule, and have control over your life. You wouldn't have to ask a boss for permission to go on vacation. In fact, you could take a vacation whenever you want. You're the one calling the shots. So I felt like I had just found the key to happiness, the key to freedom, the key to everything I had always wanted. Now, at the time I was 11, I couldn't afford mentors or coaches because I didn't even have a bank account. So I tried to speak to my parents and to get them to buy me a $500 course, but of course they wouldn't let me. And the funny thing is that years later, my father actually bought a book from the guy I wanted to buy a course from. So that's pretty funny. But I decided to get started anyway. I wasn't going to let anything hold me back. And after reading about many success stories from people who started from nothing, I knew there would be challenges on the way. I knew it wouldn't be the easiest thing in the world. I wasn't going to get rich overnight. Now, at the time, Instagram started to become popular, but I didn't even have a phone or any kind of device. I just had a laptop. But you couldn't run Instagram on a laptop back then. And when my parents finally bought me a phone, because I was going to a school which is like far away, so they figured, yeah, it might be smart to give him a phone, that way he can contact us just in case. That phone was so cheap, it couldn't run Instagram. Now, at some point, finally, my parents agreed to buy me a tablet for my birthday. So I was finally able to utilize Instagram, and I started to create team pages to sell shoutouts and ebooks. At first, that was my goal. Now, to be honest, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, so I quit that business model pretty quickly. I made no money. Now, years later, when I was in high school, I stumbled upon dropshipping. So with one of my friends at the time, we decided to work on it together. Since he was working a part-time job, he was going to invest in a 2.5k dropshipping course. So we decided, let's do it together. So we found a winning product, which was basically a trendy product, a flat squeeze mop, and we built a Shopify store around it. Then I created some creatives on Facebook and our first ever ad campaign. And then I clicked on the button to set the ad live. It was a summer evening and I was about to go have dinner with my parents. So I left my room, and about 30 minutes later, when I came back, I noticed on my phone probably like a dozen WhatsApp notifications from my best friend. He was going fucking crazy because he told me, look, somebody's buying the product. And at first I was like, come on, are you joking? It's only been 30 minutes, we launched the ad. But then I went onto Shopify and I saw it. I couldn't fucking believe it. I was shaking, my heart was beating so fast in my chest. It was insane. I had made money online for the first time ever at 17. Now, to be honest with you, at the time, I didn't really believe in dropshipping as a business model because I could already see the many flaws of it. For instance, I knew that in order to have a successful store, we'd need to spend a lot of money on paid ads. And obviously, we were both broke. We couldn't afford to do that. And even if we were somehow successful, profit margins would be extremely small, between 9 to 20% if we got lucky. So what ended up happening is that Facebook ads quickly ate up all of our ad budget, literally. So sure, we made $50, but we spent close to $200 on ads, and that didn't even include the cost of the product, the shipping or Shopify itself. Now, a while earlier, I had discovered a business model which was consulting, selling services online. And because it seemed like a very interesting business model, you could actually make a lot of money doing it, even if you were starting from scratch, I decided to get started because to me, it seemed like the best business model for beginners. With a consulting business, I could get started with no previous experience or skills and figure it out along the way. And per customer, I could charge between $500 up to $5,000 depending on what I would sell and who I would sell it to. And profit margins could be as high as 98%. If you take a look at the first videos I posted on my YouTube channel back in September of 2022, I was essentially posting some of my video sales letters that I would show some of my prospects before they booked a call with me. At the time, I was providing done for you, done with you lead generation services for entrepreneurs. I was essentially helping them to book more meetings because I figured if I had to learn to book meetings for myself, for my business, why not do it for others as well? That way, I don't have to learn two skills. And at the time, I didn't really know you could leverage remote contractors to do the work for your customers so that way you can deliver any service even if you don't have the skills to do it yourself. So my first customer paid me something like $300, but then I was able to increase my prices. And after booking meetings for other business owners for a while, I transitioned into consulting. So teaching business owners how they could book more meetings instead of doing it for them. That way I could scale my business and take on more clients and do something I was actually passionate about, which was teaching, educating. And that's how I was able to have my first $1,000 day in sales at 21. I remember the day I closed my first sales call. It felt insane. The lead was honestly so qualified, he was willing to invest. And so we get to the end of the call and I pitch him my service and he just buys it. I send him the payment link, the transaction goes through, I go onto my Stripe dashboard, I see the money, it's there. And then a few minutes later, I get a notification on my phone, you've just received $1,000. That was probably one of the best moments in my life. Then I remember just running to my parents and showing them my phone with the notification. And in my mind, I was just like, oh my fucking god, this stuff works. I was literally shaking. Now, nowadays, what I do is that I help ambitious individuals to start a profitable online business, selling services or consulting the same way I did. And I help existing business owners to grow their business further. And it's with this business model, selling services and consulting, that I've seen the most amount of beginners actually find success online. It's not with print on demand, with dropshipping, with crypto, Amazon FBA, or some other kind of shitty business model people are trying to sell you on. So look, you need to make a choice now. You can keep watching YouTube videos on how to make money online, but doing that won't make you money. Or if you're committed to starting your business so you can become financially free, I invite you to check out the free resources in the description below or directly book a free call with me or my team and we'll see if we can help you. That being said, if you found this video helpful, share it with a friend and together let's blow up this YouTube channel and empower ambitious individuals across the globe to become financially free.